Hello, this is a quick tip on presenting your work, specifically quad wireframes and UVs. It isn't always necessary, but some prospective employers like to see it and some marketplaces like CG Trader and TurboSquid like you to show it. This is usually one of the last few renders I do before uploading, so your lighting and camera should already be mostly set up. I do usually try and get a front and back 3/4 view in one render. So to do that, I duplicate my model and rotate the copy 180 degrees on the Z-axis. Most of my renders are done at 1920 by 1080, and I use a focal length of 90 on my camera, and I then frame them both within the shot. Next, you can create an override material, but personally I use the existing one. I'm not saving it anyway, so it doesn't make much effort. I unplug the diffuse, the metal and the roughness, and leave the normal plugged in. Then set up an ambient occlusion for the base colour. This helps smaller details pop out and not get lost behind the wires. To do this, add an ambient occlusion node, plug that in through a colour ramp and then through a mix RGB shader. Adjust the colour ramp to darken the crevices and the colour in the mix RGB shader to something pleasing. A hint of yellow or orange usually works well to make it pop out. I usually increase the specular and drop the roughness a little too. The method for the wireframe I got from Julie Strater's video, and is by far the simplest for quad wires with full control. This is in cycles. I don't know if there's an EV equivalent. Step 1, go into the render properties, scroll down and enable freestyle. Step 2, under layers, enable freestyle edge. This option only shows after step 1. Step 3, under edge type, disable everything and enable edge mark. Step 4, select your model and go into edit mode, select all the edges, right click and select mark freestyle edge. Step 5, the wireframe will appear when you render, not in your viewport. You can then adjust the freestyle color, freestyle alpha and freestyle thickness. Your particular settings will vary depending on the camera distance and density on your model, but I find a dark grey, 0.8 alpha and thickness of 1 or less generally work well. When you're done, you can either unmark all the freestyle edges or disable the option in the render settings panel. For the UV, I use a checker shader plugged into the Color 2 slot of the Mix RGB shader from the ambient occlusion. You can then change the scale of the checker to something that reads well and take a render. Alternatively, with the checker node selected, you can press Ctrl T. With the Node Wrangler add-on enabled, you'll get the mapping coordinates and can adjust the projection and scale from there. If you prefer, you can do both the wire and UV on the same render, but personally I think it looks better separate. If you found this helpful, please subscribe for more tips.